Good morning everyone. Today my report is all about, or my task to discuss is all about transportation. So let me to discuss about costs which might be missed when assessing the various transportation modes. So we have a basic cost elements in transportation. So first one is the line haul cost. So which means when goods are shipped, they are sent in a moving container that has weight and volume capacity. The carrier, private or for hire, has basic cost to move this container, which exists whether the container is full or not. For a truck, this includes such items as the driver's wage and depreciation due to usage. These costs vary with the distance traveled, not the weight carried. The carrier has essentially the same basic cost whether the truck moves full or empty. If it is half full, the basic cost must be spread over only those goods in the truck. So that's it for line haul cost. So let's proceed to the pick up and delivery cost. Pick up and delivery cost means costs are similar to line haul costs, except that the cost depends more on the time spent than on the distance traveled. The carrier will charge for each pickup and the weight pickup. If a shipper is making several shipments, it will be less expensive if they are consolidate and pick up on the trip. The third one is the terminal handling. So, terminal handling costs depend on the number of times a shipment must be loaded, handled, and unloaded. If full truckloads are shipped, the goods do not need to be handled in terminal, but can go directly to the consigned. If part loads are shipped, they must be taken to the terminal, unloaded, sorted, and loaded into a highway vehicle. At the destination, the goods must be unloaded, sorted, and loaded into a local delivery vehicle. So let's proceed to the billing and collecting. Every time a shipment is made, paperwork must be done and an invoice made out. Billing and collecting costs can be reduced by consolidating shipments and reducing the pickup frequency. And that's all for the basic cost elements in transportation. According to Michael Thompson's classic book, Great Cities and Their Traffic, 1977, provides a useful breakdown of the ways in which most people are dissatisfied with the transport system of their cities. He has given 7 problems of urban transport interrelated with each other. So, as you can see, it shows in figure 5.2 the 7 phases of the urban transport problem. So, first is traffic movement and congestion. Traffic congestion occurs when urban transport networks are no longer capable of accommodating the volume of movement that use them. The location of congested areas is determined by the physical transport framework and by the patterns of urban land use their associated trip-generating activities. Levels of traffic overloading vary in time, with a very well-marked peak during the daily journey to work periods. Although cause congestion can be attributed to overloading, there are other aspects of this basic problem that also requires a solution. The second one is the public transport crowding. So, the person congestion occurring inside public transport vehicles at such peak times adds insult to injury, sometimes literally. A very high proportion of the day's journeys are made under conditions of peak hour loading, during which there will be lengthy queues at stop, crowding at terminals, stairways, and tickets offices, and excessively long periods of hot and claustrophobic travel jammed in overcrowded vehicles. So that's all for public transport crowding. And let's proceed to number 3, off-peak inadequacy of public transport. If public transport operators provide sufficient vehicles to meet peak hour demand, there will be as insufficient patronage of peak to keep them economically employed. If on the other hand, they tailor fleet size to the off-peak demand, the vehicles would be so overwhelmed during the peak that the service would most likely break down. And the number 4 problem is the difficulties for pedestrians. Pedestrians form the largest category of traffic accident victims. Attempts to increase their safety have usually failed to deal with source of the problem and instead have and now let's proceed to number 5, which is the parking difficulties. So, parking difficulties means that many car drivers stuck in the city traffic jams are not actually trying to go anywhere. They are just looking for a place to park. For them, the parking problem is the urban transport problem. Earning enough to buy a car is one thing, that being smart enough to find somewhere to park it is quite another. However, it is not just the motorist that suffers. Cities are disfigured by ugly multi-story parking garage, and cityscapes are torn into seas of metal as vehicles are crammed onto every square meter of ground. And the number 6 is the environmental impact. So, the operation of motor vehicles is a polluting activity, while there are innumerable other activities which cause environmental pollution as a result of of the tremendous increases in vehicle ownerships. Society is only now beginning to appreciate the devastating and dangerous consequences of motor vehicles usage. Pollution is not the only issue. So we have the traffic noise problem. In the central area of our towns and cities, and there are other environmental drawbacks brought about through trying to accommodate increasing traffic volumes. The vast divergence between private and social costs is one which has so far been allowed to continue without any real check. So, when we say traffic noise, it is generally recognized that traffic noise is the major environment problem caused by traffic in urban areas. So, let's proceed to number 7, the last one, which is the atmospheric pollution. So, which means that fumes from motor vehicles present one of the most So, let's proceed to number 7, which is the last one. Atmospheric pollution. Fumes from motor vehicles present one of the most unpleasant causes of the living with the motor vehicle. The car is just one of many sources of atmospheric pollution. And although prolonged exposure may constitute a health hazard, it is important to view these particle problems in perspective. As the Royal Commission on Environmental Pollution has stated, there is no firm evidence that in Britain the present level of these pollutants is a hazard to health. So that's all for the problem of urban transport. And now let's proceed to the 6 modes of transportation. The first one is the road transportation. It is the common mode of transportation in logistic in road. From walking to horses, to wagons, to bikes, to cars, to trucks, road transportation has been around longer than mode, and it utilized the most of any mode of logistics. Second is the maritime transportation. Shipping by water has been practiced for thousands of years and remains pivotal in today's global trade. 90% of all international trade is accomplished through maritime transportation. Cargo ships traveled on almost every major body of water and had capacity to transport the highest volume of freight of any mode of transportation at the lowest cost. And the number 3 is the air transportation. The newest mode of transportation is air. Airplanes are becoming increasingly important in domestic and international trade, with continually improving technologies and practically unlimited route possibilities. Air transportation is the fastest growing and most time efficient shipping mode. Consequently, many companies such as Amazon and UPS have purchased their own fleets of airplanes to gain a competitive edge in the growing market. As air travel has become increasingly advanced and dependable, more companies are trusting airplanes with high value, freight, and goods. So, number 4, we have a rail transportation, which is first invented for use in the early 19th century. Rail transport quickly became vital for expansions of the Western world and has played a pivotal role in the realm of logistics of over 2 centuries. In modern practice, rail is used more exclusively for the largest and heaviest payloads, bulk cargo, traveling across land. The vast majority of railways infrastructure connects highly populated areas with large unpopulated strips of lands between them, making rail ideal for long distance and cross-country hauls. Canada, for example, is very sparsely populated between coasts, so anything shipped more than 500 miles often requires a rail transport. And number 5 is the intermodal transportation or more multimodal. It often in logistics. One shipment is completed using multiple modes of transportation. For example, consider a SBM in Germany shipping goods to the Oregon. Their shipment will most likely begin on road, be transferred to rail, then to maritime, which transfer to rail in the US, and then arrives at its destination in Oregon by road once again. The purpose is to take advantage of the individual strengths of the different modes, thus reducing costs. The practice is known as intermodal transportation, and it's often necessary in logistics. And the last one is the pipeline transportation. It is not a formal mode of transportation in the traditional sense. However, it is important to acknowledge for its importance in the current fossil fuel market. So, pipelines transport unrefined fossil fuels such as gas and oil from their point of origin to the point where they can then be transferred to refineries or other mode of transportation. The cost of shipping primarily lies in its constructions, the diameter of the pipeline, and the viscosity of the fluid being transported. They can be built above ground, underground, or underwater, making them ideal for offshore drilling. So that's all the 6 modes of transportation. So each mode has its advantages and disadvantages for its role in the supply chain. The primary responsibility of logistic managers worldwide is calculating what the best mode is for specific shipment. Each factors comes into play: volume, speed, distance, and the cost. What traits is important to your company? Do you value speed over cost? Cost over volume? Volume of distance, or exact of opposite? By knowing what mode is best for your company, you can make the decisions necessary to grow your business and create winning supply chain. So that's all. That's the end of my report, and thank you.